What's going on, guys? Welcome back to my F122 My Team career, and we are getting ever closer to the finale of our first season here in F1. For this episode, we are heading to the Sao Paulo Grand Prix for our first trip to Brazil around Interlagos, and the last sprint weekend of the F1 calendar. So we're going to get our activity timeline set, and we are very excited to head towards another fantastic circuit. Going to be a very tricky circuit for us, especially as we continue trying to dial in our performance and dial in our skills here as we try and improve as much we can. Taking a look at our R&D chart, we know we still have a long way to go, but with 1,400 R&D points available to us, we definitely know that we have some things to play with. Now, we have a lot already in progress, so we're trying to find things that we could potentially take a look at and get going that aren't already over capacity here. So we'll go ahead and get a couple things going, and we will head on over to the next item here. We'll go ahead and advance time. Hopefully everything comes home as we expect, and we should run into no issues here as we're getting all of our notifications coming to our final development points, and we get our R&D things done and over with. And now on to the next stage of the weekend here. We'll head back to our R&D chart here as we actually are going to take a break in between our Pirelli hot lap and before qualification and the sprint race. Try to always make sure, especially now as we're nearing the end of the first season, trying to make sure we always have something going, having our research department maxed out, as we know we still have a long way to go in terms of the R&D chart. We also still have a few parts that need to be adapted. I think we've kind of gotten a little lazy on paying attention to these and didn't know we had more to go. So go ahead and get that one going. Should be our last one if I'm not mistaken, so hopefully we won't run into any more issues, and we'll actually go ahead and get a free upgrade going as well that we'd actually work down basically to a cost of 0. So that was very, very okay by me. But now with only 800 points left, we're trying to see if there's something worth going with for 810 points, or is it better to save it? I think it probably got saved from ourselves with that chassis department being at capacity already. So we're just going along trying to make sure that we're not missing anything important. But for now, we'll head over to Interlagos on a wet day here around the this Brazilian circuit. So we are heading into qualifying here for the sprint race weekend. I always get taken aback on these sprint race weekends, and that I'm never ready for qualifying to happen as early as it does. Normally we do just do the quick practices, and so I always get surprised when qualification comes up so early here. So we are on to our best lap here around Interlagos here in Sao Paulo, trying to qualify as best we can here. You can see currently sitting in P21, only ahead of Nicholas Latifi in the Williams, and currently behind our teammate Oscar Piastri, who is just ahead. So we are trying to work our way here around the circuit, but we had trouble in this session, clearly, as we currently sit in P21, trying to find the lines and find the grip and try to find the level of smoothness that you really kind of need here, especially with all these long sweeping corners. And we just really could not find the lines. We really could not find the pace and the tempo here. And so we actually ran into a lot of trouble around qualifying, as well as you'll see later. It was definitely a tricky situation for us. We were trying our best, but you can tell that thanks to the rain, we had a lot of issues in earlier qualifying. As you can tell here, very slow trip around Interlagos, and we find ourselves actually 1.125 seconds up as we head down towards the final straightaway, towards the finishing of our lap. So you can tell just how much issues we had around here. So we will cross the line all the way up into P10, and we will make it on to the next round here of qualifying. At least we are hoping so. And we'll actually, this is crossing the other way, we actually fall all the way to P18 in this qualifying session. So very, very unfortunate. We hit P10 on our last lap, going almost a second and a half up on our best time. But that first sector and a half that really gave us issues was truly our downfall. As you can see there, Piastri also not having a best qualifying here. He really has struggled in our car, as is probably right with the level of the car that we've been able to give him so far. So we'll head now to the starting grid. I think that we're definitely going to be seeing more penalties than not at this point as we are nearing the end of the season. It seems like every single person on the grid is taking a grid penalty here. So it's almost as though we get a true starting grid here. As we get down to the end, we'll see that we won't be taking penalties. We actually are taking a penalty ourselves this weekend just to make sure that we have enough components, good components, to last us the rest of the way. Thankfully, it should last us here. So with the starting grid done, we will head now towards the sprint race weekend. And the first sprint race, the lights are out and we are away here. Starting in P18, we actually get a pretty decent start here as compared to the Alfa Romeo and the Aston Martin ahead. We'll dive right up the inside, probably a little too aggressively. We'll probably bump the back of the Williams there a little too hard, but we do get the move done, thankfully, probably with a little bit of damage if we're not being too dishonest with ourselves. But nonetheless, we find ourselves moved up here into P16, trying to make something happen here on this opening lap when we know we have a chance. And there's going to be some squabbling ahead, and we have to be ready to make a move should an opportunity present itself. So we find ourselves following the Alfa Romeo of Valtteri Bottas and the other Alfa Romeo of Zhou Guanyu. We have to take a bit of avoiding action there as we get a little late on the brakes and run very, very, very close to running right into the back of the Alfa Romeo there. You can just see how much issues this circuit really gives us as we're trying to pick and choose our way through here. We get the move done on Valtteri Bottas, who probably just backs out just to avoid having to run next to us. Presumably, he's just going to wait for us to make a mistake and he'll be right back in it. So as we are rounding the final corners here towards the opening straight on this first lap of our sprint race, we make up a few positions, but we know we have a long way to go. And you can see here, Valtteri taking a look up the inside, gets a great run towards this opening straight, and we'll have the inside line. Probably wisely decides to back out as we will head back onto the bumper of Zhou Guanyu, who gets a nice exit through these quick left-right sections and gets a great run here down this back straight. And so we are just going to try and defend as best we can against Valtteri, but that Alfa Romeo car is absolutely a better car than ours, and so we'll take him around the outside, and I think that's just the AI backing out more than Valtteri would at that point. He definitely had that inside line and definitely had the move done should he have committed to that. So thankfully, we get the move to stick on Valtteri. We'll get him to back out, and we will move forward here on our second lap, still chasing in the back, but nonetheless, we will move forward here. A couple of drivers actually had to stop for damage at this point here on lap 6, the halfway point. And so we actually find ourselves with an opportunity to potentially move up, not necessarily into the points, but at least into a potential top 10 start here for the Grand Prix on Sunday. And so we are definitely hounding the back of the Haas of Kevin Magnussen as much as we possibly can to potentially trying to move towards the outside, but just decide against it probably for the best. I think we finally are trying to see if we can have gotten a bit of a hold on this circuit, but it still gives us a lot of trouble as we activate our ERS here and try and get a great run with ERS. Kevin moves and blocks us off and actually causes contact, but we will hopefully still get the move done without them using too much of our ERS. We'll have the outside into turn 1, but the inside here will actually move a little further over to try and cover him off the best we can. But unfortunately, Kevin hits us with the switchback and he will have DRS here. And so we are activating as much ERS as we dare, trying to continue and send one up the inside, trying to complete the move that Valtteri was too scared to complete on us earlier in the race. And so we will hold the position on Kevin after he really almost got the good old switchback on us nice and clear. So over halfway done in this one, we find ourselves here in P12 and a few seconds behind the Alpine of Esteban Ocon, and we have a lot of work and a lot of ground to make up here, but unfortunately not a lot of ERS to do it with. So I think it's just going to be about finally hoping to try and find the right lines, trying to find the right tempo, and we'll have to make up this gap naturally. Unfortunately, as we move here to lap 12, we made up a lot of ground, and we were really pushing here on this last few turns to try and make a move done. You can see all the way up into P9 of Mick Schumacher, so the opportunity is there. And so we're definitely pushing as hard as we can. So we dive right up the inside, and actually a fantastic move down up the inside of the Alpine, very, very close to contact, but we actually get the move done. I think it's probably the best move that I think I've ever pulled so far on this series as we decide to cover off the apex there. We will activate ERS all the way home, and unfortunately we will not hit the top 10, but we will finish here in P11. We actually get DRS, and so it will be a nice cruise home as we try to just move on to race Sunday here. Starting from P11, I think we're going to have a lot of ground to make up, but don't we always? So, but a relatively successful sprint race there as Yuki Tsunoda gets the driver of the day from us. And we will head towards the results screen here to see where everyone finished up. Carlos Sainz, George Russell, and Charles Leclair round out the top three. You can see Oscar Piastri there finishing up in P18, a pretty solid day for him, all things considered, but all of it's to play for here on race Sunday. So we'll go ahead and take a look at the starting grid once again for this Grand Prix. The two Ferraris on the front row and a bit of a lockout for the Scuderia. Lando Norris and Sergio Perez, Daniel Ricciardo, Pierre Gasly, George Russell and Sebastian Vettel, Alex Albon and Fernando Alonso round out the top 10. Kevin Magnussen and Lance Stroll behind them. Mick Schumacher and Lewis Hamilton down in P14 thanks to a couple of grid penalties. Here in 15s, we have Yuki Tsunoda and Esteban Ocon. Oscar Piastri will start P17 and Latifi will start P18. Valtteri Bottas and I will finish out the second to last row. And Max Verstappen and Zhou Guan Yu will round out the grid thanks to a lot, and I mean a lot, of power unit grid penalties. So we are going to head towards our formation lap here, unfortunately finishing up right at the bottom of the grid here thanks to a bunch of new engine components we took, which in this game it seems to apply those grid penalties on the race Grand Prix itself. So all of our work there in the sprint race to try and move up as much as possible was really for naught, as we unfortunately get hit with a lot of grid penalties that keep us from really moving too far up the grid. But nonetheless, we are hoping to use the practice we got in the sprint race to try and find a bit of pace and try to find a bit of rhythm here in Sao Paulo. And we will hopefully have a very fantastic result. We've been on a bit of a run here around the last portion of this season, trying to find a bit of pace, and I think we've definitely succeeded more times than not here. So as we finish forming up the grid, we're going to hope to get a last few points here in our last couple of goes here in this opening season in F1. So the grid is set, the drivers are ready. We go to 5 red lights, they are out, and we are away here in Sao Paulo. And we get actually a pretty decent start. I think our starts have definitely been improving as we'll send a big dive up the inside. Ocon takes a bit of us right up the rear there, so we will get a warning for our collision with him. But nonetheless, this inside line served us very, very well, already up into P16. Esteban Ocon and Mick Schumacher going side by side here down the straight. Ocon moves, Stroll moves to cover Ocon. We'll dive up the inside of Esteban, sort of similar to how we have a couple other times this weekend, a little late on the brakes and a quick move to the outside. Gets the move done for us. We run a little wide. We'll deploy a little ERS as a defensive manner, trying to hold off the Alpine of Esteban Ocon as long as possible. But now P14 is where we make our huge lunge, which probably would have resulted in damage in real life. But thankfully, the AI have a bit better reaction time than probably is worth as Lewis Hamilton moves to the side. These long sweeping corners, these are the kind of moves that really is probably a bit unrealistic if we're saying, if we're being completely honest, but nonetheless, we're trying to get for every point we can here in this alternate F1 universe. So at the end of lap 1, we will find ourselves here in P12 up from P18 or so where we started, and it is going to be a-okay with me as we are trying to do everything we can to score as many points as possible here in our F1 season debut. Down the pit straight, finishing up lap 1, hard on the brakes into turn 1, and we will be following once again the Haas of Kevin Magnussen, who gave us a lot of issues in the sprint race, and he'll be leading us around as we make a bit of a jump forward here to lap 4. Magnussen has made a good run himself up into P10, and now we find ourselves behind the Aston Martin of Sebastian Vettel, who is an absolute master at placing his car perfectly in every sweeping corner on every apex. We'll make a big move as we are wont to do here. Thankfully, he respects my huge lunge and probably moves out of the way, probably very wisely, or else he might have turned it directly into us. So we're definitely taking the line of aggression here as we try and battle for every position we have. And now a second and a half ahead, the road leads us to Kevin Magnussen, and we are trying to do our best to leave and break the DRS toe of Sebastian Vettel if we possibly can. So we're going to deploy a little bit of ERS, and we're going to hope that Sebastian and Lewis Hamilton fight a little bit to allow us an opportunity to escape up the road after Kevin Magnussen. You can see that we've actually worked the time down back to just about a second, and we are unfortunately out of DRS range, but we are inching ever closer to breaking the DRS range behind to Sebastian Vettel. As we can see now, we're about 3/4 of a second away from that 1 second barrier as Lewis Hamilton makes the move. And actually, thanks to his lunge at Sebastian, really teetering on that 1 second gap. We were hoping that Seb can make a run back at Lewis to sort of cement that 1 second barrier. And it looks like we may get our wish as we are hovering right around 1/10. We can't make any mistakes here, as breaking off the DRS train back to Lewis behind us would be absolutely huge, especially if we can get DRS off those ahead. Thankfully, here as we move forward, we can see that no DRS for Lewis off of me, and so Vettel is going to be making that move on him as we actually set the fastest lap of the Grand Prix here, as we are doing everything we possibly could to break the toe behind to Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel. We make a bit of a ballsy move here on Kevin Magnussen up into the points paying positions here into P10. We have DRS thanks to Kevin Magnussen, and so we now make the march forward, trying to break the 1 second barrier behind once again, now to the Haas of Kevin Magnussen, and we are marching forward towards Alex Albon in the Williams, who has actually been riding in the top 10 so far in these 6 laps and doing a very fantastic job so far in a Williams car that actually rates lower than ours here on the grid. So all it shows is that it just takes the right driver to really get the most out of the car here. But moving forward here, lap 7, at the beginning of lap 8, we find ourselves making a huge dive up the inside, making a bit of contact with Alex here, trying to squeeze him out on the exit, and we will chase after now Pierre Gasly in the AlphaTauri, but also defending from behind from Albon into the Williams. And that Williams has shown that it has pace in real life, and it definitely has pace compared to our car in a straight line on this game as well, as Lewis Hamilton takes the fastest lap of the Grand Prix so far as we head forward, and we are making our way towards the quarter point of the race. And we are doing actually pretty well, currently sitting in P9. And moving forward here towards the end of lap 9, beginning of lap 10, we find ourselves still here in P9. But thankfully, once again, the most important thing that could happen, breaking the DRS moment of Albon behind, make a huge lunge to the inside of turn 1 like we have been wont to do. And Pierre just turns into turn 1 as if we aren't even there and actually hits us. And thankfully, we didn't get any damage on our underbody, which absolutely would have ruined our race for us in the long run, as we've seen this season that that underbody damage can really be a Grand Prix killer, as you just really don't get the same performance from the underbody. And the thing that kind of just keeps you stuck to the ground in corners, it's not all just the wings and everything like that, but we had definitely seen that the loss of performance from the damaged underbody can do. So thankfully, the little bump from the AlphaTauri isn't enough to really throw us off. But now we find ourselves up into one of our favorite positions we found ourselves in many times here so far in this premiere season for us, here in P8 in the points, but not necessarily challenging for many more than a spare point or two. As you can see, the Alpine of Fernando Alonso, 4.5 seconds up the circuit, and Pierre Gasly behind, not necessarily giving up, as that 1 second barrier we are unable to break here, opening down the pit straight towards the beginning of lap 11, and Pierre will get DRS down the main straight. So a bit of defending later, we find ourselves forward on lap 16 of 36, and Pierre hovering around that 1 second mark. As you can see here, that the first round of pit stops is being made, and we will be making ours here, our 1 pit stop this race. And we will be going from the medium tire towards the evergreen hard tire, I believe, as it truly just, the soft tire was absolutely getting destroyed here around Interlagos. And so we will be going from the medium onto the hard. And it's going to be very important here, as we have a nice free bit of space here, hopefully, down as we get in a bit of caught up in a bit of traffic here. And we will come out behind Kevin Magnussen in the Haas. Unfortunately, everyone kind of making their pit stops at the same time. Unfortunately for us, ours came a little slow, and so we come out behind some of the drivers we had managed to pass so far in this race. But nonetheless, we are onto our final tire with 20 laps of racing remaining, and we have to do what we have to do here. And we know that there is no room for mistakes, especially on these hard tires. So moving forward here to lap 24, thanks to the rest of the pit stops being finished, we find ourselves in P11. As you saw, we were passed by everyone that we managed to move up into. And so we now find ourselves just outside the points, but with plenty of time remaining to try and claw our way back into the points, as we can truly see our old position almost straight up the road. We can see all the way up into P9 here, and we are making sure everything is looking okay. We're hearing a bit of component wear, as the second to last round of the season. You're absolutely going to be seeing a lot of component wear at this point. We have a bit of a peak around the outside of Kevin Magnussen, but unfortunately with these hard tires, just really not having the grip necessary to go around the outside. And so at this point, we are a-okay, just biding our time as long as possible, but ever present that any opportunity that they want to give us, we will absolutely take it in terms of making a move. We know we don't have much of a threat from behind, as Sebastian Vettel is about 7 3/4 seconds behind us. So about 7.7 seconds behind us, as we will try and make a move on Kevin here, deploying ERS, getting him to move side to side to defend. We'll take the outside line. He will have the inside into turn 1, but we will try and go around the outside, as it will lead to the inside line here in turns 2, and we will close the door on Kevin there, and up into P10 we go. And so we have 1 point secured as of right now. We'll hold DRS thanks to the moves we made on Kevin. And now we move forward here on the bumper of Alex Albon in the Williams, heading towards the opening straight here. We'll open up our DRS and try and make the same moves we did on Kevin. We'll kind of set him up to the inside. We'll take that outside line that we know turns into the inside line there in the second corner. We run very late on the brakes and actually almost just ruin everyone's race into that little fight by almost once again running into the back of a car ahead of us in Pierre Gasly. Thankfully, we were able to get out of the way in time, but at the same moment, that gives him a perfect opportunity to sort of run away from us down here. Alex has a look up the inside, but we close that door very, very swiftly, and that causes him to have to brake very hard and really back off a lot more than I think he was originally planning. He made almost a me-esque move there towards the inside, and at this point Albon's run was pretty much vanquished at that point, and now we make a fantastic run here with DRS against Gasly without DRS around the outside of turn 1. But Pierre is not going to go away nicely, as we kind of get a bit cheeky with the track limits there, cutting the corner there of turn 2. And now we find ourselves back into our favorite position here, P8. And this is going to be the position that we're going to be fighting for here. 9 racing laps remaining. And Fernando Alonso 16 seconds up the road, getting dragged along up there with Daniel Ricciardo. You can see them well within DRS of each other. And so at this point, we are fighting for the maximum of 4 points here with Pierre Gasly, who now is going to set up behind me and is going to be very content to hold off and wait until that opening straight to make his move, as we're keeping an eye on our tire wear, as we have to be very, very aware that, if we push too hard too soon, our tires could absolutely go off, and that would spell disaster for us, as we're trying to do everything we can to maximize every opportunity in our car through daring moves and tire management to the best of at least my ability, which at this point is still not much. As you can see, we run very wide there on the exit of that final corner. I think we're just trying to cover off as best we can, and we actually get a really great run here. Now, as we move forward here to the final lap of the race, we were able to hold off Pierre Gasly ever so much, deploying ERS as much as we could dare, trying to continue to hold him off of that 1 second barrier to DRS. You can see ahead, Fernando Alonso and Daniel Ricciardo still in a fierce battle as we finish up our last lap of racing here around Sao Paulo, as Charles Leclair wins the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. He has been on an absolute domination mission this season, and no one was going to stop him today as he comes home to win the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. We're just making our way through the final few corners here. We saved up as much ERS as we could. As you can see down there, with about 60% left for these final few corners. We will activate it all the way home. Our tires screaming at this point, but we will come home to finish in a very comfortable and very familiar P8 here in Sao Paulo, getting a very nice set of points here as we continue to make our final push down the rest of this opening season. So a P8 finish for us is going to absolutely be meant, and we cannot be any happier with this results, as we also take home driver of the day, moving up from P18 to P8, a full 10 places moved up. So a very fantastic day for us. But it's this team and this man in Charles Leclair coming home to win the Sao Paulo Grand Prix. Looks like Carlos Sainz comes home to finish P3, and a McLaren, which I would imagine is Lando Norris, rounds out the podium here in Brazil. A fantastic finish for them and a fantastic finish for us. And we're coming down to it. We have one round left here in this opening season for us here. We head to Abu Dhabi with all to play for. I think we have, at this point, we'll have to check and see the results screen, but I think this pulls us within a striking distance of whoever is in the position above us in the constructors. It is blanking my mind right now, but we will check on that as soon as we get to the results screen and we watch Charles celebrate on the podium here with Lando and Carlos with the champagne. Very much deserved for them. But for us, we're focused now on the finale round here of this 2022 F1 season. And we have a position to fight for in the constructors, and we are going to be ever focused on it here. So you see here on the weekend, we end up finishing 9th overall thanks to the sprint race finishes. And we will go ahead and take a look here at the finale positions here. We can see that we finished P8 in the race, and Oscar finishes P19 on the weekend. I think, I don't know if that means he finished P19 in this race in the Grand Prix, but unfortunately he was, oh, here we go. We'll take a look here. He does finish P19 in the race, making up a couple of positions. Great for him. We love to see that from our teammate here as we take a look at the driver standings. Charles Leclerc, 116 points clear of George Russell in second. Absolutely a dominant season. And here in the constructors, we see that we are ahead of the Alfa Romeo team thanks to this result. 2 points separate us from them in P7, and now Abu Dhabi is all to play for them and for us, and it is going to come down to that. I'll see you in the next one.